Ladies and gentlemen, hi. My apologies for not joining you in the beautiful city of Melbourne today, but when you are watching me on the screen, I will actually be in Lima for the annual meetings of the World Bank Group and the IMF. And this year they are the critical venue for some climate finance discussions. It will be the first and last time that finance ministers will meet to discuss climate finance ahead of the Paris climate negotiations. It doesn't take me to tell anybody living in Australia or the Pacific of the dramatic impacts of climate change and weather-related extremes which are already affecting millions of people, affecting your crops, your coastlines, your businesses, and the opportunity to prosper going forward. Our studies at the World Bank Group have shown that global warming of close to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial times is already locked into the Earth's atmospheric system by past and predicted greenhouse gas emissions. And for us, climate change and poverty are inextricably linked. We know we can't end poverty or boost shared prosperity without tackling climate change. As the Secretary General of the United Nations said last weekend, we are the first generation that really has the opportunity to end poverty and the last generation that has the opportunity to combat climate change. And so we need to drastically cut greenhouse gas emissions in coming decades and build resilience in both people and cities and countries so that we can actually expect to prosper. Paris, therefore, has to show real political ambition. It is a critical opportunity to galvanise the political will that's needed for urgent action and the discipline and the stamina that we will need in order to turn the course of future economic growth so that it is low in carbon and builds resilient development. One piece of the puzzle in Paris is the need to demonstrate a politically credible pathway to deliver on the promise to developing countries of $100 billion a year by 2020 of climate finance. Much of that $100 billion is already flowing through multilateral development banks, including the World Bank Group, and we play a critical role in leveraging that public money to crowd in and mobilise private finance. Across the bank group, we already finance on average about $10.3 billion a year of climate finance and successfully leverage the private sector from that. We're working in this region. Last year, our private sector arm, IFC, invested in Sunergize International Limited, a company that supplies solar rooftop energy in the Pacific. It was an investment that allows Sunergize to expand solar installations across the Pacific region, including to the Solomons and Papua New Guinea, where businesses lack a stable and affordable power supply, helping them access less expensive, cleaner power with no upfront investment required. We're ready to do more, and here in Lima, we will make commitments to do more. But I think it's very important that we look at the national plans, the INDCs, that have been filed with the UN over the last few weeks and months, because there we can see the sign of future demand. There we can see the contours of investment plans in every country, investment in energy, clean energy infrastructure, in clean transport solutions, in climate smart agriculture, in better water systems. As the Chinese have indicated, their INDC alone is a clear plan for future investment and a clear job creation plan. This is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity for you as investors. Low carbon growth will allow businesses to unleash new levels of innovation, create new jobs, and help build a stronger economy. As we read these INDCs, and we see these plans for each country to move onto a pathway for low carbon growth and resilient development, there are certain fundamental things that government will have to do in order to direct investment into the clean, green economy of the future. We'll have to get prices right. Governments will have to use explicit or implicit measures to put a price on carbon. All of the evidence is that as countries do that, they do become more efficient. Investment does start to flow into the greener side of the economy, and R&D spending by the private sector does focus in on low carbon solutions. That is why the World Bank Group, together with many jurisdictions around the world, mayors, political leaders and business leaders, are simply saying one of the first obvious steps that has to be taken is that we put a price on carbon. You may have all seen the recent Mercer study, Investing in a Time of Climate Change, supported by IFC. The report makes it clear that your returns will be impacted under any future climate scenario. At a recent Principles for Responsible Investment meeting, the majority of investors, 60%, saw themselves as makers of the future, saying they would factor in climate risk in their investment strategies. Only 5% of the investors declared that they would not. And they're probably not in the room. So I have a few questions for you. So my first question, and amongst friends I'm going to provoke you a little bit, is are you really on top of this? I remember this time last year in New York, the divestment end of the conversation around financial stability announced that they had about $50 billion divested across the financial sector. This time, just last week, they announced $2.6 trillion worth of divestment, and more very big investors following suit. Did you hear Mark Carney's speech to Lloyds and to the insurers of London, and his commitment that the FSB will start looking at the issues of financial stability and security as a result of a possible carbon bubble or as a result of the need for a carbon budget? Are you really having honest conversations, if you're an asset manager, with your asset owners? Are you really working with the clients in your portfolio to ask the right questions and to talk through strategic risk? Are you really concerned about changing the short-termism of the investment cycle? Or are you going to push that to other people in the financial sector and say it's their responsibility too? Are you really prepared to look at the structural solutions to a financial sector that is standing on unsafe ground? On October the 8th here in Lima, we will launch the UNEP inquiry. It's been a very interesting 2-year journey of asking questions of sustainable development, of the financial sector's role in sustaining sustainable development. There are many, many more questions for us to ask as we try to navigate a global economy to meet the needs of the poor, to combat climate change and to provide for all of us. As captains of finance, as those who are deeply intimate with the issues of finance, we have to remember why we're in the financial sector. We're here to serve. Will you help implement the action needed following on from Paris? Will you have your sleeves rolled up and be at your desks on the Monday morning after Paris, looking for the investment opportunity that lies in each INDC? Or will you be sitting at your desk saying that the invisible hands of the financial sector make it impossible for you to move forward? There's a very, very proud tradition of speaking out early, a very proud tradition of looking around corners and seeing the future clearly in the financial sector. IGCC has played such an important role on sounding the alarm over recent years. But now, as the world is beginning to hear the alarm, we have to do things differently, and we have to drive forward and understand risk in its full entirety, and we have to be prepared to seek opportunity. I look forward to working with you in the future. It will be bright and it will be green. Thank you.